We're going to begin this section by talking about how to solve an inequality. Remember that solving inequalities means that your problem will have a greater than, or a less than, or a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to symbol in the problem. A few reminders before we get started. Your goal in working a problem is to solve for x. Remember that if at any time you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to change the direction of the inequality. When you express your final answer, you want to express that answer on a number line. And on that number line, you either want to use a solid circle or an open circle. Remember that you use a solid circle if your answer set includes that value, meaning that in the original problem you had a less than or equal to or a greater than or equal to. You're going to use an open circle if your answer set does not include that value, which means that your original problem had a less than or a greater than, but no equal to option. You're also going to express your answer in interval notation, which means that you're going to either use parentheses or brackets to express your final answer. You're going to use a bracket if your answer set includes that particular value, again, meaning that the original problem had a less than or greater than or equal to in it. And you're going to use a parenthesis if your answer set does not include that value, which means that the original problem had a less than or a greater than, but no equal to. So our first example says that we want to solve negative 16x plus 8 is greater than or equal to negative 9x plus 13. And remember that our goal is to solve our inequality for x, so we want to get x by itself. And so we need to start moving things around. Now it doesn't really matter where we start, but I'm going to go ahead and start with this negative 9x. So I'm going to add 9x to both sides of the expression. So when I do that, negative 16 plus 9 is going to give me negative 7x. The 9x's are going to cancel and leave me negative 13 on the right. Again, your goal is to get x by itself. So the next step would be to work on this plus 8. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, which is going to leave me a negative 7x on the left and a negative 21 on the right. My last step is going to be to divide by negative 7. Remember that we said if at any point you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to change the direction of the inequality. So this greater than or equal to that is in the original problem is going to turn around and become a less than or equal to. And so our answer set will be all x values less than or equal to 3. Now when we express our final answer, we also want to put our answer on a number line. So we said on the number line, you're either going to use a solid circle or an open circle on the 3. Because we have less than or equal to, that means that the 3 is included as part of the answer set. So I'm going to use a solid circle on the 3. And then I want to shade in the direction of the x values that are less than that, which means that I'm going to be shading to the left. We color in the arrow at the end, which indicates that it continues on in that direction forever. We also want to write our answer in interval notation. If you have a number line already drawn, the interval notation is fairly easy to write. You want to ask yourself, where does the shading start? On the left. So on the left, we know that we have started shading back at negative infinity. And we're going to shade all the way to the 3. Remember the 3 is included, so we'll use a bracket on that. And the infinity is never included because infinity is not a term that we can actually reach. So you will always use a parenthesis on the infinities. Our next example is similar. We have 4x plus 7 is less than 2x minus 3. And again, we want to solve the inequality for x. So we're going to begin by subtracting this 2x off of both sides of the inequality. 4x minus 2x is 2x. We'll bring our plus 7 down. And the only thing we're left with on the right is a negative 3. Our next step is to deal with the plus 7. So we'll subtract 7 from both sides. It's going to give me 2x is less than negative 10. And my last step is to divide both sides by 2. And so x is less than negative 5. When we draw our number line, we're going to mark off the negative 5. Because negative 5 is not included in the answer set, because the answer set is x is less than instead of less than or equal to, we're going to use an open circle on the negative 5. And we want to shade the x values that are less than negative 5. So again, we're shading to the left. Our interval notation, again, we're going to start shading on the left part, which is going to be the negative infinity. And we're going to shade all the way to negative 5. Since the negative 5 is not included in the answer set, we're going to use a parenthesis. And remember that infinities always get parentheses. We will also see inequalities that have 3 parts. These are either called combined inequalities, or sometimes you will see them referred to as just 3-part inequalities. Your goal remains the same. You want to isolate the x, this time in the center of the expression. So I'm going to begin by adding 2 to all 3 parts of the inequality. Whatever you do to one part needs to be done to all 3. So negative 5 plus 2 is going to give me negative 3. In the middle, the 2's cancel, leaving me just 3x. And on the right-hand side, 1 plus 2 is 3. Again, keeping in mind that your goal is to get x by itself, the next step is going to be to divide by 3. And if I divide by 3 in the middle, I'm going to divide by 3 on all 3 parts. So I have negative 1 is less than x is less than 1. Remember that your rule applies here as well. If you are multiplying or dividing by a negative at any point, you need to change the direction of all the inequalities. So now that we have our answer set, let's go ahead and draw our number line. We're going to mark off a negative 1 and a positive 1. Note that you have less thans in both positions in your answer set. So that means that you're going to have an open circle on the negative 1 and an open circle on the positive 1. Now, sometimes students are a bit confused at this point as to how to shade. The easiest way to determine how to shade is to note that the x is in between the negative 1 and the positive 1. So you want to shade in between on your graph. When we do our interval notation, we look at where we start shading, which is the negative 1, and where we stop shading, which is the positive 1. Since neither the negative 1 or the positive 1 are included in the answer set, we're going to use parentheses on both sides. For our last example, we have 3x minus 11 is less than 5x minus 3 is less than or equal to 3x plus 9. So again, our goal is to solve for x to get x by itself in the middle of the expression. So I'm going to begin by adding 3 to all 3 parts of the equation. So when I do that, I'm going to have 3x minus 8 is less than 5x is less than or equal to 3x plus 12. Now, my next issue is that I'm supposed to solve for x in the middle of this expression, and I still have x's on both the left and the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt to move, for example, this 3x. So I'm going to subtract 3x from the right-hand side, and I know that if I do it to one side, I need to do it to all 3 parts. So what I see happening when I do that is that the 3x minus the 3x goes away over here, leaving me just negative 8. In the middle, 5x minus 3x is 2x. And again, the 3x's cancel on the right, leaving me just 12. My final step is going to be to get rid of the 2 that sits in front of the x, so I'm going to do that by dividing all 3 parts by 2. So my final answer is going to look like negative 4 is less than x is less than or equal to 6. When we draw our number line, we're going to mark off the negative 4 and the positive 6. The negative 4 is not included in our answer set, and so we'll use an open circle. However, the 6 is included in the answer set, so it will need a solid circle. Where do we shade? We ask ourselves where the x is. The x is in between the negative 4 and the 6, so I'm going to shade in between the negative 4 and the 6. When I do my interval notation, I look at where did I start shading. I started shading at negative 4. Where did I stop shading? I stopped shading at 6. The negative 4 is not included, so it gets a parenthesis. The 6 is included, so it gets a bracket. So the solution set is anything from negative 4 up to and including positive 6.